Welcome to the Bears Draft Profile Series. Today, we are going to be taking a look at Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. A lot to discuss here. So, Sammy, let's start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's going to be sick.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And of course, if you missed our previous episode, we looked at Caleb Williams, a lot of great conversation around him, the presumptive number one overall pick in the draft. Now we kind of want to focus in on the guys who could be somewhere at number 9. And of course, some of these players are very good. You might trade up or do anything like that, but we want to cover all of our bases. We've seen some receivers tumble in the draft, and to make sure that we have everything here locked in, we are going to be going down to Nashville for our draft analyst and consultant from the Sick Podcast, Draft Vogel. It is Draft Vogel. Draft, how you living today?
Man, killing it. Doing everything I can. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. And I think it's amazing that we're wearing the same clothes that we were in the previous show. I guess, you know what? We just find ourselves in this. No, I'm just teasing. But one of the guys that I wanted to talk about that I'm very interested in is Rome Odunze. When we were talking about, the big three wide receivers in this draft, it's Rome, it's Malik Neighbors, and of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. Of those three, where's Rome? Is he 1, is he 2, or is he 3?
For me personally, he's 2.
Okay.
I loved his game. The first thing that kind of stands out about him is I think he's a true number 1 wide receiver. One of the things that I had kind of gotten into with, some of the serious radio guys, Jim Miller, Pat Kerwin, was the death of the X and Z wide receivers, those designations we used to have on those types. Now we really talk about them as 1s and 2s, and then you got your slot and all of that. But Rome, out of those 3, really seems to be the best 1 type receiver, in my opinion. I thought that he's very dominant. Yeah, he's dominant, and you feel his presence as soon as he comes on the field. He's an excellent route runner, especially in the intermediate range, 15 to 20 yards, right down the middle of the field, smooth through his breaks, and just excellent speed, obviously tested really well, in explosive numbers, change of direction, absolutely lit up the combine, did everything there except the bench, which was outstanding. You don't see that very often, right? A guy come in there and do everything as a first-round pick. But Rome,
it is unusual.
Rome's awesome. Rome was awesome. I loved his game.
One of the things that, even though he ran a 4.45 at the combine, which is very good, he always seemed to be, I think one of the knocks on him was like his lack of what they call for NFL speed. Now, he's obviously faster than us, but NFL speed, like he wasn't fast enough, which to me was kind of a lot of the same things that you would have heard about Larry Fitzgerald, where people didn't think that Larry Fitzgerald was fast enough. I remember, in the Super Bowl against the Steelers, I was watching the game at the NFL Network studios with a former Cardinals team employee who did not like Larry Fitzgerald because he wasn't fast enough. And of course, Larry Fitzgerald broke away for the go-ahead touchdown. So as I'm watching Rome, I kind of see some Larry Fitzgerald. Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, I could see it. And I think he's faster than Larry was.
Faster, okay.
I think he's a lot faster. I think Larry was a 4.57 type guy, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Don't quote me.
Too late. You're quoted. Somebody's blowing you up in the chat right now.
4.45 is awesome. It's well above average. The average wide receiver right now, I believe, is 4.52. So it's a well above average. It's enough to pull away from some NFL corners. Now, the thing that you really create your separation on is your breaks. When you get to the top of your route and, you stem into whichever direction it is that you're going to go. And that requires some smooth hips and some leverage. Jerry Rice always kind of talks about being down low, right? And when you hit that break, you see a lot of these guys nowadays, when they hit that break, their hips are they're up, they're sinking them to get into the break and get down lower and get through it faster. And he's going, why aren't you just staying low the whole way through it? Well, Rome does. And that's why Rome looks so smooth when he's going through his breaks, because he's already low. He doesn't have to throw his hips down, thrust down, break into it. He's already through it. And that's what some of the great wide route runners do. If you go back, and NFL Network has a couple really awesome specials about just route running and the art of it. If you go and watch some of those guys that they talk about on there, you'll see that in common. They're not throwing their shoulders around. They're not throwing their heads around trying to get that DB to turn a different way. They don't have to. They're in complete control because they're playing low, through that break. And that's what you kind of see Rome do.
Is there any sort of red flags or anything that stands out to you that, as teams are starting to go through their evaluation, might be like, you know what? Don't kind of like this about him.
Maybe they'll bring up, because
I read something too. Well, I read something too that that they were actually saying that he was sloppy in his route running, that he wasn't crisp enough. And I didn't get that at all, but I would think that you were talking about this a moment ago. Like that seems debunked already.
No, I don't think so at all. He's a very good route runner. Now, sometimes he, I think in the Oregon game a couple of times he was playing against, some longer defensive backs. And at that point, I think he got up a little bit higher, so because he was almost like, if you think about when you line up on a corner and he's shorter than you, sometimes you can use that as a gauge to say, hey, I need to play down to here. So if you play someone that's taller, like he did against Oregon, because they had some taller corners this year, that gauge is going to be thrown off. And so I thought he got a little top heavy and kind of lost his footing at times, but no, he's typically very smooth all the way through his breaks. Loved his route running. I didn't think there was any problem with his route tree. He's one of the top graded guys I have, Adam. I mean, he's a top 10 player to me. And I was just literally, you were like, is there anything they could knock him for? I'm looking through my report going, I don't know. Maybe you could say, well, he's not great through his release. He's just really good. Like it's kind of
right.
That's where most of it is with him, is you could just say, oh, well, he's not great at this, but he's really good.
Yeah, they get to be, I know sometimes we have so much time between this time and the draft. They just start nitpicking and they're just trying to find ways to kind of, I don't know. You want to talk yourself out of something all the time. Like you can talk yourself out of a good time at any point, like, I don't want to, I got to get up early in the morning or anything like that. And I think with draft prospects, they do the same thing of like, maybe we could do this. Do you see him being available for the Bears at number 9? I do. And I don't, because I think that we've seen, over the course of the last couple of years, like, we place a higher emphasis on receivers in some teams, but I think that I don't know how likely it is it gets to 9. Where do you see him falling?
If you get 4 quarterbacks taken in the top 6 picks, like some rumors have been floating around, which is very possible. It's very likely.
Absolutely possible.
Obviously, Chicago's taking Caleb Boyne. You get to 2. Now, Jaden Daniels probably comes off the board to Washington. If New England moves back with Atlanta, Atlanta is probably not in the quarterback market like they were, but Minnesota, or Las Vegas, one of those teams that are trying to move up and get a quarterback. Now we're talking about May or McCarthy coming off the board. The Giants could move up from 6, to secure a guy before, they lose that.
You know what? That's
Chargers at 5. Yeah, there's so many different things that are open with the quarterbacks. But if you get those 4 guys in the top 6, I think Rome's going to be there available at 9. Because you look at the teams picking ahead of them. Cardinals could take a wide receiver. They could. Yeah. Probably looks like they're leaning Marvin Harrison Jr.
Right.
So that's what all the books.
That's what they get mocked all the time. Yeah. But if they trade out, like if New England,
1 for the most part.
Yeah, because New England could easily take a quarterback too if they fall in love with Drake May or JJ McCarthy and wanted to go that route, and the Cardinals trade to the Vikings. And then the Chargers are a wild card because wide receiver seems automatic to them, but at the same time, it's Jim Harbaugh. You never know what he's going to do, and he could just, draft an offensive lineman, which means that 6, 7, and 8 end up being the I don't know. I know the Twitter experts are always like, there's no way he gets there, but you never know. That is one of the beauties of the NFL. I do want to say this too. You said that he's your number 2 guy. Don't say who your number 1 guy is, because we have more of these videos coming out. We want you guys to click in to find out who is going to be that number 1 guy. I want to implore everybody, if you've liked this so far, check out the previous episode with Caleb Williams. We will have more dropping in the next couple of weeks. And if you want more draft analysis, go follow the Sick Podcast, Draft Vogel. Follow him on Twitter at Draft Vogel. And we will be back here in a couple of days to get you ready for some more draft picks. So thank you so much for being here. We'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.